So in today's lesson, we're going to start working with our polynomials. In the last lesson, we just talked about what polynomials are, how to make sure they're in the right order, certain vocab words that we have for them. In today's lesson, we're going to talk about adding and subtracting polynomials together. So we're going to take two polynomials, and we're going to add them together or subtract them together. Maybe it'll be a binomial plus a trinomial. Maybe it'll be a binomial plus another binomial. Maybe it'll be a trinomial minus a binomial. We'll be doing all sorts of those different types of problems. Before we do that, let's go over a rule that we've talked about before, which is exponents. So if I have two terms like this, 4x to the second plus 3x. As we know from basic algebra rules, we can only add and subtract like terms together. What are like terms? They are terms that have the same variable, but they also must have the same exponent. So 4x to the second plus 3x. Are they like terms? Can I add them together? The answer is no. Even though they both have an x, this has an x to the second, this just has an x. They do not have the same variable, which means I cannot add them together. You cannot add terms together that do not have the same variable, but also the same exponent. That's very important. In order for you to add or subtract them together, they must have the same exponent and the same variable. So even though these both have an x, they both do not have the same exponent, which means I cannot add them together. So this would be my answer. I would just leave it like this. Okay? Now what if they did have the same exponent? So for example, 4x to the second plus 3x to the second. These two terms have the same variable, they both have an x, and they both have the same exponent, which is a 2. So we're going to add them together. So how do we do this? It's pretty simple. You take your coefficients, which are the numbers in front of the variable, and we add them together in this case. If it was a subtraction problem, we'd subtract them, but in this case it's an addition problem. So we're going to add them. 4 plus 3 is 7. And now it stays x, and the question is, what do we do with these exponents? Do we add those as well and make it x to the fourth, or do we keep it the same? And the rule is when adding and subtracting, same thing for both, we keep the exponent the same. So 2 and 2 is going to stay 2. So once again, in order for you to add and subtract them, they must have the same variable and same exponent. That's what makes them like terms. So we add the coefficients. 3 and 4 is 7. We keep the x the same, but we also keep the exponent the same. Do not make it x to the fourth. We do not add the exponents together. We do not add the exponents together. We keep the exponent the same. So 2 and 2, keep it 2. Let's do another one of those. So this time I have three terms. 8x to the third minus 2x to the third plus x to the third. Now, are these all like terms? Yes, they are, because they have the same variable and the same exponent. Remember, they have to have the same exponent for you to add and subtract them together. And they both have an x to the third, x to the third, x to the third. So all we're going to do is we're going to take their coefficients and combine them. Now, what coefficient, what number is in front of that? It's a 1. So we're just going to take them together. So I have 8 minus 2 is 6. 8 minus 2 is 6. 6 plus 1 is 7, just like the last one. And I'm going to keep it as x to the third. Remember, when adding and subtracting, we keep the variable and the exponent the same. We keep the variable and the exponent the same when adding and subtracting. So 8 minus 2 is 6. 6 plus 1 is 7. Keep it x to the third. And there we go. Keep it the same. All right, so now let's talk about how to add and subtract polynomials. So here I have a trinomial plus another trinomial. 4x to the third plus 3x to the second minus 7x plus 8x to the third minus 10x to the second plus 15. We're going to add two trinomials together. All we're going to do, it's real simple, is we're going to take the like terms. Remember, like terms are the ones that have the same variable and same exponent, and we're going to combine them together. In this case, when I say combine, we're going to add them together. So for example, I see a 4x to the third, and over here I have an 8x to the third. Those are like terms. Why? Because they have the same variable and the same exponent. So I'm going to add those together. just like we did on the previous slide and the previous slide before that. So 4x to the third plus 8x to the third, we take 4 and 8 and make it 12, and we keep it x to the third, just what we talked about. When adding and subtracting, you add the coefficients, you keep the variable and the exponent the same. That's why I kept x to the third and x to the third as x to the third. Now what I like to do once I've used them is cross them out. That just helps me keep track. So I have x to the third. Remember, we want to keep it in order by degree. Talked about that in the last lesson. This is a degree of 3. So now I need the next degree, which is 2. Well, here I have x to the second, and I have another x to the second. So I'm going to add those together. 3 plus negative 10. 3 plus negative 10 is negative 7. So it's negative 7 x to the second. I've used those two. We combine them. So now I have a negative 7x. The question is, do I have a like term? Do I have another x term that I can combine it with? And the answer is no. The only thing left is a 15. That does not have a variable. It's a constant. So it is not a like term with this one. So we're just going to drop it down. So it just becomes negative 7x. We just drop it down because it does not have a like term. And we cross that out. And the last one, we have a plus 15. I do not have any other terms that I can combine it with. I have no other like terms. So once again, we're just going to drop it down as well, plus 15. Now we need to make sure it is in order by degree. Remember, degree are the exponents of the variables. So this is degree of 3, degree of 2, degree of 1, degree of 0. That is in order by degree from left to right. Remember, we always want the biggest one on the left, the smallest one on the right. So that is our answer. How do we know it's our answer? When it is in order by degree from left to right, biggest to smallest, and when I have no more like terms. I have no more like terms I can combine. So this is our answer. Let's do another one. This time we're going to do a subtraction problem. We're going to do this just slightly different, one extra step, but besides that it's the same thing as addition. So I have 4x to the second plus 3x minus 7 minus, we're subtracting, 8x to the second minus 10x plus 15. So here's how we're going to do this. You're going to keep the first polynomial, whatever it is, the exact same. We're just going to bring it down. So 4x to the second plus 3x minus 7. Do not change anything about the first polynomial. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take this subtraction and we're going to distribute it inside. In this case, because it's a trinomial, we're going to distribute it to all three. If it was a binomial, you distribute it to both terms. If it had 4 terms, distribute it to all 4. You're just going to distribute that negative to all the numbers inside. Negative, if you want, that's a negative 1. Negative 1 times 8 is negative 8x to the second. Negative 1 times negative 10 is positive 10x. And negative 1 times 15, negative 1 times 15 is negative 15. So once again, we kept the first polynomial the same. You just drop it down. We're going to take the negative and distribute it through the second polynomial. And those answers we're also going to drop down on the same one. Now we do what we did in the addition problem. We combine our like terms. So I see a 4x to the second and a negative 8x to the second. I can combine those because they have the same variable and same exponent. 4 minus 8 is negative 4. Remember, you keep the exponent the same, x to the second. I have a 3x and a 10x. Those are like terms. That makes 13x. When I add 3 and 10 together, I get 13. And I have negative 7 minus 15. I can add those together as well. Negative 7 and negative 15 added together make negative 22. So now, is it our final answer? Remember, for it to be our final answer, it must be in order by degree, and I can have any like terms remaining. So it is in order by degree. Degree of 2, degree of 1, degree of 0, degree of 2, degree of 1, degree of 0. It is in order from greatest to least, and I have no more like terms. So that is my answer. Let's do one more example. Once again, this is a subtraction problem. I'm subtracting a binomial minus a trinomial, that's fine. We're going to do it the same way. Remember, we keep the first term the same. Drop it down. The first polynomial, whatever it is, stays the same. We just drop it down. So 6 plus 2x to the third stays down. Now remember, I'm going to take the negative and I'm going to distribute it. So that gives me negative 7x to the third plus 5 minus 4x. Distribute through the second polynomial. And then write those answers down here. Negative 7, positive 5, negative 4. Now we combine our like terms. Remember, we want it to be in order. So the biggest degree I see is a 3. I see 2 of them. So 2 minus 7 is negative 5, x to the third. Keep the exponent the same. Well, next, I have a degree of 3. I don't see a degree of 2. I do see a degree of 1, and I don't see any other degrees of 1s. So we're just going to drop it down. So negative 4x. Remember, if it doesn't have a like term it can combine with, just drop it down. I have a 6 and a 5. Those are both constants. They can be added. 6 and 5 make 11. So we drop it down. Is it in order by degree from left to right? 3, 1, 0. Yes, it is. The biggest on the left, the smallest on the right. And are there any like terms I can combine? No. So this is our final answer. Combine your like terms together. Make sure they have the same variable and the same exponent. When you combine them, keep the exponent the same. Make sure your answer is in order by degree from largest down to smallest, and make sure there are no more like terms. That is adding and subtracting polynomials.